समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या समझ में नहीं आया?
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
Pakistan's army chief was all smiles for Donald Trump at Davos as Pakistan was among the countries to join Trump's so-called peace board. India has stayed away, at least for now, though there's been no official response to Trump's offer to India among 60 other countries to join this peace board. Meanwhile, Trump seemed to back down on his threats to take Greenland by hook or crook as the European Union made a clear and distinct pushback to Donald Trump. How should India negotiate the next few months? I'm Barkha, you're with the Mojo story. On the program today, there you see it. Trump's charter for the peace board, inaugurated and unveiled at the World Economic Forum in Davos. Pakistan, the UAE, Qatar, Hungary, Morocco, Saudi Arabia. These were some of the countries that lined up to become part of this peace board. Bloomberg reports that there's a $1 billion prize for permanent membership. Trump, as is expected, wagged his finger at those on the podium. First said he liked a couple of them, but didn't like a couple of them. And then he said, oh, well, actually, I like all of these fellows on the stage, but effectively spoke to them as if they were school children or courtiers in the emperor's court. India has stayed away, at least for now. But remember, Trump's ego has already been bruised by India, first in Operation Sindoor, and then, if Howard Lutnick is to be believed, because Prime Minister Modi did not pick up the phone when he needed to on the trade deal. Trump, talking to Money Control, did praise Prime Minister Modi as he walked past a slew of cameras and once again said, Modi is my friend. But in his speech, in his address to the inauguration of this peace board, continued his by now very boring refrain about the role he claims he played in Operation Sindoor and how the Pakistanis have told him he saved 10 or 20 million lives. Saving lives is no laughing matter, and that's not why I'm chuckling. I'm just chuckling because I'm so personally bored at hearing this same comment from Trump over and over again, except that even though it's repetitive, it has very real consequences. Trump's bruised ego has a direct impact on one of the most important foreign policy spaces for India, our relationship with the United States of America. To talk about what might happen next, what should happen next, and let's not forget Mark Carney's much applauded speech, and Trump had a few things to say about the Canadian Prime Minister's pushback to Trump. Let me introduce three very distinguished experts in their spaces. Chidaran Rajkhatta is with us. He joins us from the United States of America, author and columnist, recently with a column saying Trump had driven Canada into the arms of China. Also joining us is veteran diplomat Ambassador Dilip Sinha. Always a great pleasure, sir, to have you with us. And joining us from Canada today is well-known author and writer Terry Miliski. Terry, seeing you after ages, and it's always good to see you. I've got to start with playing out this little clip from Trump's peace board moment. I don't know whether to feel embarrassed for the countries on that stage or what to feel. And I'm going to ask all three of you how you felt. Take a look.
It's really great. They're friends of mine. I think, let me see. Yeah, every one of them is a friend of mine. A couple I like, a couple I don't like. No, I like, actually, at this group, I like every single one of them. Can you believe it? Usually I have about 2 or 3 that I can't stand. Usually I have 2 or 3 that I don't like. I don't find them up here. I like every one of these people. No, they're great people. They're great leaders.
Okay, and at a different point in a different address, Trump also warned Canada's Prime Minister Canada would not exist without the United States of America. So think of that, Mark, before you open your mouth again, was effectively Trump's warning to Canada, even as he seemed to back down on taking Greenland by force. Let's open this up. Chidanand, let me try and get you to resolve the eternal mystery. What is Trump's motivation? If you assume that he has a finite time left in power, it's not even like the Indian system where as long as health permits, you can contest elections infinitely. What's going on? Why is he doing this?
Legacy. If you take out all the jokes and the frivolity, look, Barkha, the United States is unique among nations in that it is built not just out of conquest but also commerce. More than 50% of the United States was actually bought. Actually, I'd go so far as saying maybe 60-80% of US was bought. You start with the Louisiana Purchase. Jefferson bought Louisiana and vast territories, still Mississippi towards the Rockies from the French, followed by Monroe, he of the Monroe Doctrine, who bought Florida from Spain. And then there was Andrew Johnson, who bought Alaska from Russians. Then there were a couple of presidents, mid-19th century, Tyler and Polk, who incorporated by conquest territories from Mexico, that's Texas, all the way to California. There was another president whose name I forget now, who got Oregon. And then there was McKinley, who got Hawaii, who annexed Hawaii and Puerto Rico and Guam. And so if you look at Trump's remarks, all the presidents that he admires are actually these 19th century presidents who expanded the United States. And to him, it's a legacy. The most interesting transaction, actually, I'll save this for the last. The most interesting transaction is the last transaction when the United States bought Virgin Islands. Do you know who it bought the Virgin Islands from? Knock yourself out. From Denmark.
That's funny.
Denmark was actually the colonial ruler of Virgin Islands, which is actually in the Caribbean, very close. And why did they buy Denmark? Because they were afraid after the First World War, the Germans would conquer Denmark and therefore would have access to the Virgin Islands, which is very close to Panama Canal. The US had just built the Panama Canal and they were scared that the Germans would take over Panama Canal. So they bought Virgin Islands from Denmark, paying $25 million in gold and recognizing Denmark's sovereignty over Greenland. People forget that. The United States...
Well, Harry Truman tried to buy Greenland for $100 million in gold.
Right.
So that's well documented.
That was much later.
But then are you suggesting that Trump isn't being different? He's not really being that radically different?
He's not being radically different. The difference, though, is he has the approach, not a strategic approach. He has the approach of a realtor. To him, Greenland is a piece of real estate. It's not about critical minerals. It's not about oil, energy. The US has more than enough of all that. To him, it's a piece of land. You look at the language he uses, it's all about licensing and ownership and lease and stuff like that. If he had approached strategically, he could have actually pulled off this transaction, because when Denmark sold the Virgin Islands, there was actually protests in Denmark, and Denmark held a referendum. It was the first ever referendum in Denmark about the sale, and 65% of Danes supported the sale. Denmark agreed to sell. There was opposition, but 65%, agreed to sell. And Trump could have probably, if he had done it quietly, he could have pulled it off. But you know what? This is a man who is the emotional quotient of an 8-year-old trapped in an 80-year-old body. So he loves grandstanding. He loves being loud and noisy about it and talking about it. And when he was denied, when he was told, no, you can't buy it, Greenland is not for sale, of course he acted like an 8-year-old. So yeah, his whole approach is, I want legacy and I want it now. He's not patient. He can't work his way through it quietly. He just wants bulldozers.
But the consequences, and that's a great line, by the way, the EQ of an 8-year-old trapped in a 80-year-old's body, but the consequences are very real, and it is upending. It is upending every country's sort of template for foreign policy. So, Ambassador Sinha, let's come to this so-called peace board, being called the Gaza peace board to begin with, but actually just a generic board of peace. India stays away. Pakistan is not just there, but Asim Munir, the field marshal that Trump has on occasion called his favorite field marshal, is not just present at Davos, he's in the audience. Shehbaz Sharif at one point points him out and Trump nods along smilingly. This is in the backdrop of the UAE leadership just having signed a very important pact with India. But this peace board, are you glad, relieved that we've stayed away at least for now? I mean, we've had no official response to what we're going to do to this, so we don't know. I'm assuming we'll stay away, but I don't know. What's your guess?
Well, I can't guess what the government's reaction will be, but I hope it doesn't join, because this is going to be a place where you'll be insulted at each stage. In each class, he'll insult the people as he did at the very inaugural, like a school teacher pulling up one students. And if you hold a public opinion poll in India, I suppose there'll be very few people who will say that we should actually accept this membership, because it really is quite farcical to think that a peace-building commission, a board of peace set up by the US, can take over the role of what the UN, the Security Council, had set up the peace-building commission, which is to take over the role of peace-building in countries where the UN had a role to play. And the US was one of the major funders of this commission. Now we have a situation where the US wants to take over this and set up a body where you have a permanent chairman who can decide who will be a member, who will not be a member. This really is becoming a farce. I mean, if at all, I think as a joke, perhaps, if we have to send a representative, we must send a businessman who can take over, who can join the group of people there. And since it's a real estate enterprise of investment in Gaza, a businessman can do it better. A realtor who can speak, understand the same language as.
But can we afford to bruise his ego a third time round?
You know, perhaps a year ago, maybe 6 months ago, I would have said, no, don't bruise his ego. But now I don't think we can go along any longer. It is just not possible for us to play along with this game, because he's really, as Mark Carney said in his speech, he has the international system has ruptured, and now it is each country for itself. The idea that we can turn to America for any kind of cooperation is now over. Each country is there for itself. Each country has to build its own strengths. It has to build its own coalitions and take care of its own interests. There is no United States of America which we can turn to either for trade or for any kind of cooperation.
At least not for the next 3 years.
Exactly. Not as long as Donald Trump is there, and we don't know what will replace him, because the way he's going around invading his own country, Minnesota, we don't know what impact it will have on his own country.
Yeah,
remember the US 150 years ago had a civil war.
Yeah.
So these are not things beyond the realm of imagination.
Since you've brought up Carney, I want to bring in Terry. Terry, the Canadian Prime Minister's speech being applauded as the best speech ever heard at Davos, and really a kind of mea culpa in that speech. The Canadian Prime Minister conceding that the rules-based order was partially always a fiction. It always had big countries, big powers of sort of, creating exceptions for themselves. But now it doesn't work. And I'm curious to know, A, how Carney's speech has gone down in Canada. B, what do you make of the argument, and Chidanand is among those who wrote this in his columns, that basically Trump has pushed Canada into the arms of China?
Well, I think that in the first place, Canadians are very pleased with Carney's performance in Davos. They're pleased to see the international reviews about what a wonderful speech it was. And the Liberal Party of Canada is now contemplating, I wonder if we called a quick election to cash in on this feeling that the Liberals would emerge with a majority. Because as you know, they're still a minority government, even though they've snagged a couple of opposition MPs to shore them up, but they still have a problem. Certainly, Carney got a pretty good audience, not just in Canada, but all over the world, because of what he did tell it like it is, even if it was in the tones of the quintessential Davos man, the polished international technocrat, throwing in references to Greek philosophers, Thucydides, in his speech, and generally making an enormous contrast with the anti-Davos man, Mar-a-Lago man, who came a day later and, by contrast, acted like an ignorant thug. So Carney won that attention for a reason, though. There is a substance in his speech, as rightly been described already. Suffice to say that his message resonates not far beyond Canada, namely that the old order is gone, it ain't coming back. Nostalgia, he said, is not a strategy. And I think that that part, among others, certainly rang a bell in Davos, where far too many people confessed to having thought for a while that, well, once Trump is gone, Trumpism will be gone. Carney is arguing, no, it isn't. We've got to get the message, smell the coffee now, and smaller countries should gather together where their interests coincide to pursue those interests as a group, because we can't hope to go up toe-to-toe with the giants. And that includes India, of course, but also China and the United States. The rest of us are going to have to scramble for what we can get and quit dreaming about the old order returning. The old order, he said, is gone. Well, so far so good. And in this crowd, in the Davos crowd, it sure went over well. But exactly what it means in terms of whether it's Canada or any other middle power, as Carney describes them, it's not certain that this is going to work, that we're going to form a little club with all the other little countries who are interested in one particular issue, and they're going to get organized and group together and gang up on the giants. He didn't say much about exactly how that's going to work.
So are you saying rhetorically very eloquent, but practically nobody knows what they're going to do next?
More or less, yes. I'm trying to be more polite, but thank you. The fact of the matter is that yes, he was very stylish and eloquent, and we're proud of that. But we still don't know. And the Conservative opposition in Canada, of course, have picked up on your point, which is that what
changes?
What changes? I mean, all he's actually brought home from China is a deal for some cars. I think it amounts to about 3% of the Canadian market. China will be able to sell 50,000 EVs, and we're going to sell more canola to the Chinese. It's not that big a deal. It's something. He can come back and say, yes, you can't say that I came home empty-handed, but it's not a lot. There's a lot more flesh needs to be put on these bones.
Okay, I think that's an excellent question, that in terms of the eloquence of Carney's speech, great going, the EU pushing back, great going, Trump backs off just a little bit on Greenland, but in real terms, Chidanand, I mean, I think I was interviewing Fareed Zakaria, and he said, and he's a Trump critic, and he said, but Trump understands leverage. And in the Indian context, he knows that India needs the trade deal more than America needs it. In the Canadian context, I think Terry's really saying, okay, fine, after the hugs and kisses with China, or the photo ops with China, after the rah-rah speech at Davos, what's going to happen in real terms? I'll add a question here to your comment on legacy from Prasad. Barkha, I fail to see how one can leave a trail of stupidity in the guise of a legacy by creating a board of peace, right spelling. The French and Swedes declined. Italy wants time to think. Basically, other than Hungary, none of the Europeans have joined. So I think the question is, who's telling Trump that he's actually building a great legacy?
Nobody's telling him. It's all in his mind. You can't tell him anything. His own aides can't tell him anything. Look, I mean, this is a unique character in the history of, humankind. And I think generations will study Trump and his period. The thing is, look, the rupture that Prime Minister Carney spoke about is not just, between, Europe, rest of the world and the United States. It's within the United States itself. Trump's ratings, his approval ratings is in the toilet. He is one of the most unpopular presidents right now. And, going into midterm elections, and I believe one of the reasons he backed off from this whole Greenland quest, there were two reasons. One is, of course, he stated it himself. He mentioned that the stock market tanked when he came to Davos. He's very sensitive to that, actually. If there's one thing that will hold Trump back, it's the markets. He loves the stock market. He loves, the numbers going up all the time. And when it tanked, I think he got a message. And then there's the midterm elections coming, and I think he's already starting to worry. He's said a couple of things like, oh, elections don't matter. We don't need to have elections and stuff like that. It's pretty scary. But yeah, I mean, there's domestic pressure too. And
My question to you is, is there any polling on how Trump's own voters are reacting to how he's conducted himself in the last few months?
Well, if his approval rating is down to in the mid-30s, it means that many of his voters too are decamping. Actually, the most interesting poll, Barkha, since you use the word, I think you use the word bored. You're bored.
Yes.
In this
Yes.
thing, is
well, I'm at least bored of him saying the same
Exactly.
thing about stopping wars. He needs a new preposterous claim.
correct. So there was this one poll which said, 42% of Americans are exhausted with it. And I think that's the more accurate this thing. It is exhausting to just wake up and hear this man day in and day out, and he loves hogging airtime. I mean, his speech, he is a crashing bore. You're right, but his speech, not just in Davos. Before he left for Davos, there was this 80-minute ramble in the White House on his anniversary, the first anniversary, which was unbelievable. And this is not a man who knows history or geography, or you saw that whole Iceland Greenland fiasco. Somebody had to should have told him.
He mixed up the two, and then the White House spokeswoman denied it.
Told him that Iceland is green and Greenland is icy. It's a line from a movie actually. But yeah, he approaches it like a realtor, like I said. It's very interesting, by the way, since you mentioned Iceland. Iceland is actually the country where the two continental shelves meet. Actually, the North American plate, the North American tectonic plate, and the Eurasian plate meet. And in Iceland, there's actually a ridge. It's a tourist attraction. I know it because I went there recently, where Europe and America meet. And so this man approaches everything from the perspective of a realtor. Everything is a deal, a transaction. I don't think he's thought through minerals. I mean, critical minerals, all that is baloney. It's just he wants to expand the United States in his mind, and he's transparent about it. That's the great thing about Trump. Nothing is secret. So he sits in the White House, and there are photos of him planting a flag on Greenland. And I mentioned, I think, on one of your previous shows that if the United States acquires Greenland and, God forbid, Canada, it just becomes the largest country in the world, larger than Russia.
Yeah.
And that's his fantasy. That's his fantasy. And he's just playing it out openly, very transparently, no secrets. Everybody's shocked, everybody, we can't get over the fact that he can even think like that. But it is hard. It's all about, conquest, expansion, land, real estate. And also, by the way, he gives up, the United States gives up something, he wants it back, like Panama Canal, for instance. He wants it back. And he hates the fact that the Panama Canal was given away by a Democratic president. It was, Carter who initiated, because he thought it was morally right, and Clinton actually executed the return of Panama Canal. And now he's on to Diego Garcia. He hates the Brits for giving up on Diego Garcia. The world over, there is this whole sentiment that, give back land which belongs to the people.
Let's bring in Ambassador Dilip Sinha on the sort of the countries that did join the board. You said, I hope India doesn't join. And, you have Asim Munir strutting around with the Pakistan Prime Minister, obviously the real fount of power in Pakistan. There's a photo of them, I think, showing both of them meeting Marco Rubio. We have that. It'll come up in a moment. At one point, Trump seems to ask from the stage, where's Asim Munir? And Shehbaz points to somebody in the audience, and Trump sort of smiles along approvingly. What do we make of this? I mean, it's kind of curious to see how Pakistan is walking this tightrope as a vassal state of China, sort of kissing and hugging the Americans. What do you make of it, Ambassador Sinha?
Pakistan is trying to get back into the world. After the US abandoned it because of its withdrawal from Afghanistan, Pakistan was really a lost country. The only country that looked at it was China. And recently, in the last 2-3 years, China's investments in Pakistan have gone down because of various China's own economic problems, as well as the insurgencies and the increase of terrorism inside Pakistan, which has led to a number of Chinese nationals getting killed. So Pakistan was really lost in this world. Now, Pakistan sees an opportunity to get back. It is occupied the center stage. It is there in Davos. It was Asim Munir got a lunch. So America, it's extremely happy because Pakistan was really lost when America abandoned it. Remember in the 1950s when America was looking for alliances against the Soviet Union, Pakistan was one of the first countries to join it. And so Pakistan sees itself as being back to the days when it is once again relevant to the world. Its relations with Saudi Arabia have improved. So Pakistan.
But what do you think the Chinese might be feeling about what they're up to with Washington?
I think China is quite willing to accept Pakistan as its link with the rest of the world, especially with the Middle East, and perhaps also with the US. Because remember, Pakistan did play the role of the bridge way back in 1971. So China realizes that Pakistan is useful as a friend, as an ally, and there is no reason to object to it fooling around with America, because it can be used usefully by China whenever it requires. And in any case, China is now reasonably confident about its own position vis-a-vis both America and the rest of the world. So it doesn't need to worry about Pakistan turning towards America. China's hold over Pakistan is extremely strong, and I don't think Pakistan can ever hope to get out of it.
Terry, how is the China factor playing out in Canada? You said that you thought Carney didn't come back with much from the Chinese, but we've had prior scandals in Canada where China has been accused of sort of basically influencing domestic politics in Canada. How is that playing out? B, what is the feeling vis-a-vis Trump in Canada right now, Terry?
Scandals have not gone away. You're quite right. They continue to have salience in Canada, because the Liberal Party, both under Prime Minister Trudeau and now under Carney, has been routinely accused of kowtowing to China in pursuit of trade and getting very little trade and lots of kowtowing. And now, of course, in the wake of Carney's great speech, what are the headlines? Well, I looked at one this morning. This is New York Times this morning. China wins as Trump cedes leadership of the global economy. So that seems to be the consensus that is emerging from Davos. It's not about Carney at all. There is, of course, a renewal of the criticism that, okay, he did come back with something, but it really isn't much. But China is skillfully, it seems to certainly Mr. Carney's critics, China is skillfully exploiting the opening presented by the split, the rupture, certainly the rupture between Canada and the United States, which is deep, and this is going to last a lifetime, I think. People are saying now that we have entered into a Chinese embrace, which we may soon find suffocating. China has a motive. China is bidding to replace the United States as the essential trading partner instead of the US. Well, that's all, to me, it seems a little exaggerated because of the enormous amount of trade between the US and Canada, and the relatively trade with China is about 4% of what it is with the United States. So you bear those numbers in mind. You see, we're talking about a generation it's going to take before China is going to, quote, take over as the leading country so far as the trade with Canada.
So what is the plan to handle Trump then for the next 3 years in Canada?
What is the plan?
Yeah.
They plan to survive if they possibly can. I mean, it would be nice if they had a plan. It would be nice if they were in control of whatever it is they do plan. But they're not. And that's the subtext of Carney's rather depressing. That's the depressing part of his message. Saying, look, there's nothing we can do. We've got to take the world as it is, he says, rather than as we wish it to be. I'm not saying it's not a good question. What is the plan? I don't think they have a plan. They're just going to try to be fast on their feet and try to fake it, try to make sure that they don't get completely swept into a corner in the superpower contest between China and the United States, and in the years to come, India.
All right. That is quite a thought, that there is no plan except survival. Let me start taking last comments there. Terry, very quickly, I'll actually start with you. If there is no plan except survival, is there a genuine fear in Canada today that when Trump jokes, we think he jokes about adding Canada to the United States of America? Is there a genuine fear among the Canadian people that could
Absolutely,
happen?
there is. Absolutely, there is. They are not laughing at this joke if it's a joke. Many Canadians have a real fear that we're going to get swept to the side first and then gradually absorbed by an aggressive United States. Now, that all depends, of course, on whether the US aggression lasts in this form after Trump. So we'll ask us again in 3 years. We might have a better answer. But are Canadians taking it seriously? Oh yes, they can see that it's wise to take Trump at his word, even though he sounds like a joke.
Yeah, that's well put. Ambassador Sinha, that takes us to a question in my concluding comments that I seek from you. There are Trump supporters, or there are pro-America. There are people who believe the equation is so important that Modi will have to do the asking. Pick up the phone, call, ask. That's what Trump wants. Indians, I think, across the aisles will not react well to that. But what's your own take? I mean, it is true that there's a genuine consequence of these tariffs. It is true that there is economic hurt to India in real terms. It is also true that there aren't a lot of great options. It's not as if China suddenly transforms as the more reliable partner to build things with. So, what do you say? Could we unmute Ambassador Sinha? Yeah, start again, sir.
Sorry. I feel that we really have to look for answers elsewhere. Looking up to Trump to try and see if he can solve either our bilateral problems or the international problems that he is causing is really quite foolhardy. It's not going to happen. So we have to, and I think here I take Mark Carney's speech very seriously, where he says that countries now have to build their own strength and coalitions abroad. So we have to look at our interests here and build our own coalitions, keeping in mind our interests, which means we look at the middle powers around and see what we can do to look after our security and also build our own strength. The idea that Trump can do anything in this field is really quite beyond expectation. Even if we manage to get a trade deal, we have not been able to get a trade deal so far, and we continue to hope that despite the sanctions that he has imposed, he will have a trade deal. I think this is very humiliating. We could have gone along for some time to try and get along with him, but I don't think that I think that time has passed now. Countries in the world have to call his bluff and tell him that he can take his own path wherever he wants to go. We have to really look at our own interests. If we have to look for markets, we look for markets elsewhere or build our own markets. And as far as the China security situation is concerned, we have to build our own coalitions here to look at our security rather than depend upon any other external power. Right? One of the big things.
Yeah, it is a Darwinian world, and it is about actually building your own hard power, even while you're trying to be agile, on the global chessboard. Chidanand, the last word to you. Here's my question. You said his ratings are in the toilet. The stock market is a language he understands. It's not doing well for him on that front, which may explain why he's dialed down or dialed back on Greenland. Could we then assume that even if he understands nothing else, he's a politician, he wants to be popular, he's doing this for legacy, he must be looking at those ratings, right? Is the worst over?
Yeah, except that in his mind, he creates his own numbers. By the way, the stock market is doing great. It was just 1 day's dive which actually, back. Otherwise, it's doing great. And in fact, that's the funny thing, because the economy, is in a tough position, but the markets are doing great. Yes, and he's very conscious of numbers, of poll numbers. He constantly looks at poll numbers, but he also creates his own reality. It's hard to get through to him and say, hey, these are the numbers, because anything which goes against what he has imagined, he dismisses it as fake or, made up, Democrat numbers and so on. So, yeah, I mean, the real test, like I said, will come with the midterm. If the midterms go against him, if he loses control of the House, he becomes a lame duck president. So I think everyone's going to hold their breath till November. But till then, One other thing, I think the Davos, event, I think it's been a debacle for him because, he
Why
went
do you say that? Why do you say that's a big thing to say?
because he tried the FAFO approach, this whole story about FAFO versus TACO.
Yeah.
And, FAFO stands for F around and find out. And
Yeah.
when FAFO doesn't work, he invariably resorts to TACO, which is, Trump always chickens out. And pretty much he actually, dialed back on Greenland. I mean, it says their framework for an agreement or something like that. This is like, what he said about his healthcare plan, that he has a concept of an idea. So when something doesn't work out, he comes up with this weird, tautology, concept of an idea.
So is the worst over?
I think for now he's dialed back on Greenland. I think the fact that Europe pretty much put up a united front despite all their own divisiveness, I think sort of convinced him that maybe this is not the right moment. I don't know what the framework of this agreement really involves. Nobody knows the details. There are never any details. He just puts out stuff. You never see the end of it. It's like his gold card or like his health plan. You never see it actually happen or executed. These are all numbers. He throws up, his 18 trillion, 20 trillion investment, and we don't know. There's never any numbers. There's never any paper trail. It's a lot, volume of words. And he just loves capturing attention. His whole idea is to flood the zone, as Steve Bannon puts it. Just put out so much stuff out there that everybody's forgotten about the Epstein files.
Correct. And he succeeded in that. And to that extent, he's not an unsmart politician. And we have to grant that. And it would all be hilarious if it weren't so actually gravely consequential. And that's the point. All right. We leave it there, gentlemen. Thank you. Great conversation. Chidanand, Avashta Sinha, and Terry. Always a pleasure. Thank you, everybody. And to our audience, see you tomorrow. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.